Dub Nation, shit is getting real. We got a lot to talk about in terms of the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade saga. I haven't been on the channel in a couple of days. I was on a little bit of a weekend trip, so there is a lot to discuss here as your Golden State Warriors are kind of looked at as one of the favorites to make a Giannis trade by Thursday's NBA trade deadline. So there's only a few days left until this thing could potentially be happening. Let's talk about it on today's show as you're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Tyler Smith. Brett Siegel of Clutch Points saying the following. He says that to this point, the Bucks have not declined the Warriors' offer, according to sources. Horst and Milwaukee's front office were fascinated with the idea of acquiring all of Golden State's future assets, but they are also taking their time with coming to a decision, which is not expected to happen until sometime within the 24-hour mark until the NBA trade deadline. Okay. This actually might happen. We've been talking about it for 7 years at this point. Golden State acquiring Giannis Antetokounmpo. This time, it feels realer than ever. Now, there is a bit of competition around the league. Surely other teams are interested in making a Giannis trade. Other teams have the assets to try to make a Giannis trade. So we'll talk about those later on, but we'll break down Golden State's first. I don't want you guys to miss a thing at all, though. That's why you subscribe to the channel. And this week, out of all weeks, you got to turn those notifications on, because when and if the Warriors make a deal, we're making a video. As a matter of fact, if the Warriors trade for Giannis, you all know we're going live on the channel. We'll also be live on Thursday for the NBA trade deadline. So for all the Warriors trade updates that you need this week, this is your one-stop shop. Hit that subscribe button right now. All right, Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. He is as tapped in as it gets with the Heat aspect of things. We know the Miami Heat are a competitor and a landing spot for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and have been for the past few years. They're in the mix right now. But this is about the overarching trade saga. He says even though the Bucks could potentially get more by trading Giannis this summer than by 3 p.m. on Thursday, Ramona Shelburne of ESPN says that Giannis doesn't want to sit out the rest of the year, and that could cause some tension up in Milwaukee. Now, the problem is that the Bucks can't risk Giannis tearing his Achilles. He's dealing with the calf stuff. He's on the shelf right now. But they also can't risk them winning games because they need to tank because they get the worst of their first rounder and the Pelicans' first rounder. So a conundrum. It absolutely is. Brian Windhorst is saying about a 51 to 49% chance, in his opinion, that Giannis doesn't get traded by Thursday. So there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot that some people are saying one way and some people are saying the other. Let's just talk about how Golden State would go about making this trade, because more has come out about that as well. Now, for the past week, we kind of assumed that Jimmy Butler would be the headliner in a Giannis trade because he just makes a shit ton of money. He makes $54 million this season, so that's a huge chunk that you could get for Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's also making upwards of $50 million. I would have thought Jimmy would be a huge piece of this trade, but it doesn't look like the Warriors want to make him one. Here's what Nick Friedel, the Warriors athletic insider, said about the prospect of a Jimmy trade, saying, even in recent days, one league source said the Warriors have made it clear to Jimmy Butler that they are going to stick by him as he begins a year-long rehab. But actions, as always, will speak louder than words, especially if the Bucks are motivated to move on Antetokounmpo before the deadline and the Warriors are steadfast in not including Butler as part of a package. Okay. So from my point of view, the Bucks, they should want Jimmy Butler in any Giannis deal that they make. Think about what type of liberation that they get in the next 15 months. They would get Jonathan Kuminga in the deal. I obviously presume that. They can decide what they want to do with him, and they could end up declining that team option. He could just be a free agent. They could just say, we'll see you later, Jonathan Kuminga. Thanks for the 3 months. And then Jimmy Butler's on the shelf for all the rest of the season into next year. And that's the last year of his contract where he makes $56 million. That would be upwards of $80 million coming off of the Milwaukee Bucks books, in addition to the control of 7 Warriors first-round picks. This is absolutely what Milwaukee should want. I don't understand how people can sit here and say, the Warriors package stinks. No, the Warriors package should be exactly what the Bucks want. Financial freedom and draft picks down the line, because they don't have enough of their own right now. Now, what kind of gets sticky in terms of making this trade is that you don't really have a lot of flexibility if you don't include Jimmy in the deal. You're really constrained because Butler's a huge salary piece. Also, if you don't trade Jimmy Butler, there's a good chance you don't get a guy like Bobby Portis back in the deal either, because you would be trading Butler and Kuminga, presumably, clearing 70+ million off of your books. You'd have to take a little bit back in addition to what Giannis makes in order to make that deal work. So you wouldn't be getting any of the Bucks like actual decent role players in addition to Giannis if you don't include Jimmy Butler, but it doesn't look like they want to. Looks like they want to go at next season and attack next season with Butler, Curry, and Giannis all in tow. So who would that leave out? Yep. Draymond Green would be the one that ends up getting traded. It's the only way. Like, the Warriors just don't have the money on their books. They're not trading Steph. If they're not trading Jimmy, then the only other name that could go is Draymond Green. Now, the Warriors in this potential framework would also get Thanasis. I mean, Thanasis is coming in any Giannis trade. We know this at this point. He stinks, but it keeps Giannis happy, and especially when the Warriors aren't technically on Giannis's list of preferred destinations. You're gonna want to bring Thanasis to make him cool. You got Gary Harris in the deal, so you would be actually transferring the power of 2 out of the 3 Garys on one team in the Milwaukee Bucks. Then the Warriors would actually have 2 of the 3 Garys in the league if they kept GP2 as a part of the equation. But I just love that stat. The Bucks have 67% of all the Garys in the league. But the Bucks would get Jonathan Kuminga. Obviously, we know the whole trade saga at this point is just, it's really getting old. But hopefully he gets dealt here in the next few days. Draymond would be in the deal. Moses Moody would have to be used for salary matching purposes as well. I'm curious to know if they could swap out Buddy Hield instead of Moody here. But I mean, the Bucks got to get something of value back. You're trading for Giannis, for God's sakes. But the real kicker is the 4 first-round picks they could offer, as well as the 3 first-round pick swaps. So the control of 7 first-round picks for the Warriors over the next, 6 or 7 years. It's a lot, but you're going all in for Wardell, and that's what should be the priority from my point of view. Now, this is interesting, right? So we're talking about Brett Siegel's report. He dropped a massive article talking about the current Giannis trade landscape, and he had brought up the prospect of trading Draymond Green in order to make the Warriors package more appealing. He said that teams out there are going to want to acquire Draymond Green for a first-round pick. I don't know who those teams are, but it's interesting to note that Siegel made that mention in this article, that the Warriors could end up boosting this trade package by involving maybe a third team, sending Draymond over there, and then that team ends up sending another first to Milwaukee. So a lot of options are out there for Golden State. Not too much flexibility, but they could get sticky here over the next few days. Now, more from Siegel here in terms of the Giannis trade. He says, one rival executive who has dealt with the Warriors before in trade talks spoke with Clutch Points on Sunday and brought up the interesting scenario where Green himself could be on board with such a maneuver, and as far as trading him for Giannis, where he could be traded and return next season alongside Curry, Butler, and Antetokounmpo, since he holds a $27.6 million player option. You guys think that's possible? I was talking with a couple people in the chat sports offices here, and they were saying, why would Draymond want to do that? He's got too big of an ego. He doesn't want to spend 3 months in Milwaukee. I bet you if that happened and he did get sent to the Bucks, he would never even play a game. He would sit out, he would make up some stupid injury, and he would come back to the Warriors over the summer. Now, what would that be for? Would Draymond accept the minimum or the mid-level to come back to Golden State in free agency? Time will tell, but I do believe that Draymond Green would do anything for one Wardell, Steph, and Curry. I mean, he already sits out every time Steph doesn't play, so what makes you think that he wouldn't want the best for the Golden State Warriors, the best for Steph over the next 2 years before his contract is up? With that being said, would you guys do this? Would you make the trade that you see on screen? Sending out Kuminga, Draymond, Moody, and the control of 7 first-round picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo, the big fish that Joe Lacob has been waiting for this whole time, the guy he's passed up multiple trades for. A for accept, D for decline. If you're saying accept, and if the Warriors think they have a legit shot at this, they must do it now. Because the difference between the Warriors and a lot of teams that are making offers for Giannis at this point is that the Warriors do have that treasure trove of first-round draft capital. Other teams don't. And when the summer hits, a new year becomes unlocked in terms of tradable draft picks. So their offers will get better, but the Golden State Warriors offers will not. Like, they're still going to have the same number of picks they can send out. So they got to make this happen right now. And they got to strike before this other team strikes, a team that I think has the next best chance to acquire Giannis if you consider the Warriors the favorites to make the deal. We'll talk about them around the corner. First, though, I got to tell you guys about our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than with Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close out this season right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. It's the best daily fantasy sports app in the game. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and you can win up to 2,000 times your money with one single lineup. It's not just football. You can mix and match basketball in the same thing. They're always throwing out new features left and right, like early payouts. So if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you can cash out those winnings before the games even finish. They offer max discounts, and they're offering one for the big game as well. Drake May, all he's got to do is throw for 1 passing yard, and this Prize Pick square, if you put it in your lineup, will be greened out. I'll show you the rest of my picks for the big game right here. I got Drake May. I'm taking advantage of that 99% off stat discount of his passing yards. I got Jackson Smith and Jigba more than his receiving yards number. I got Kenneth Walker to get in the end zone more than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. That's a goblin, so it lessens the payout a little bit, but it's more likely to get greened out. And then I got Sam Darnold more than his passing yards. You can tail my picks or fade my picks or copy my picks because you could do that in the brand new feed tab on Prize Picks. Celebrities, friends, creators like me, you can copy their picks into your own lineups. So download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right, and all that information is clickable down in the comment section and description of today's video. All right. So if you buy into this nonsense, I really don't, to be quite frank with you guys. But the prediction markets out there, they got Giannis as most likely to be traded to the Warriors if he ends up leaving the Milwaukee Bucks. Still a massive favorite here is him not getting traded at all. But the Warriors are there in the lead as far as teams he could be dealt to. So I don't know if how much mind I pay this, but it's out there. The people believe that the Warriors have as good of a chance as anybody to go out there and trade for the Greek Freak. And it's really because what does Milwaukee want? The Bucks, according to all reports, have come out and said that they want young players and picks or some combination of the two. Well, the other two teams that have big-time interest in Giannis don't have those things. The Knicks have like one tradable first-round pick, and it's not even really a tradable first-round pick. They can do swaps and stuff like that. I don't even know because they gave up everything for Mikal Bridges. Terrible. The Timberwolves, on the other hand, like they're, I think, even in a worse spot off than the Knicks in terms of trading draft picks. Now, they have a better player package, in my opinion, in terms of, like, you can give up Jaden Daniels, you can give up Julius Randle. Like, who would the Knicks package is going to be highlighted by OG Anunoby or Karl Anthony Towns or Mikal Bridges? Like, the Bucks shouldn't want the Knicks, like, starters to be on their team. Like, that would probably win too many games for them to be the dead bottom of the league. Like, Milwaukee should want to be really bad after this trade's all done. So, I don't think it makes much sense for a OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns combo or like a Julius Randle and no picks combo for Milwaukee. Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So the teams that I think have the best chance is us in Golden State and the Miami Heat. Like it really feels like a 2-team race if it's going to happen this week. If it goes all the way into the summer, I think the Knicks, I think the Timberwolves, even some other teams who aren't thinking about blowing it all up right now are going to be back in the mix. Again, that's why Golden State needs to get on this right now. Now, in terms of where the Heat are with their offer, Brett Siegel saying the following. Ongoing discussions have also been had between the Bucks and Heat regarding Antetokounmpo. Yet, league sources say Milwaukee wants all of Miami's young assets, including Tyler Hero, and so far it doesn't seem like the Heat have made all their assets readily available to trade at the deadline like the Warriors have, resulting in the Bucks' counteroffers to this point. Now, one thing Siegel also mentioned was that Andrew Wiggins would be remaining in Miami after the trade deadline. So any Golden State reunion there, it's probably off the table at this point. But I'm wondering if the Heat are withholding Wiggins from these Antetokounmpo trade talks. I doubt it, but we will see. Norman Powell just made an all-star team. Are they going to deal him in this trade? It obviously feels like Tyler Hero is going to be the headliner. But if the Bucks, if the Heat aren't offering all their young assets like the Warriors are, the Bucks should just go out there and block Pat Riley's number. What are we doing? That's so much disrespect to a Milwaukee team that, let's be honest, in our heart of hearts, does not even want to trade Giannis. And the Heat are trying to stiff him? That's ridiculous. Now, I don't exactly know what to believe because Barry Jackson did come out and say this. The Heat's offer, according to a source, is widely expected to include Kel'el Ware, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier's expiring contract, even though he's being prosecuted right now, another young player or more, as well as first-round picks in 2030 and 2032, and possibly first-round pick swaps in 2026, 2029, and 2031. So I will say, as far as the draft assets that Miami has, it's not too bad. Especially considering they're down the line. 2030 and 2032 will be year 18 and 20 for Giannis in the league. So even if he's playing by then, those picks could be of pretty high value. And you got 3 swaps there. So the control of 5 first-round picks rather than Golden State's 7. But you're probably getting better players back in this deal if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. You get Tyler Hero. You get Kel'el Ware. My thing about Kel'el Ware, it is so frustrating because Heat fans and people who cover the Heat think that this guy is some headliner in a deal when Eric Spoelstra is actively figuring out ways to not put him in the rotation. So the Heat fans think this guy's a superstar, and he's not. Terry Rozier, that's just a nothing burger. It's coming off the books at the end of the season, I think. And then the controls of 5 first-round picks, plus one of the young players they got, Kasparas Jakubonis or Jaime Jaquez Jr. One of those 2 guys would be in this deal as well. I'd want Jaquez, personally, if I was the Bucks. Now, after all this, it just feels like something's going to go down. With the Heat being this close, the Warriors being this close, and who knows, the other 2 teams and the other teams with interest in Giannis might be close too. This feels as real as it's ever been on the Giannis trade front. The Bucks absolutely stink. He doesn't want to play for them again. The Bucks probably don't want him to be out there and play again. He doesn't want to re-aggravate his injury. The Bucks don't want him to re-aggravate his injury because that takes him off the trade block completely if he tears his Achilles. So it feels like they've kind of conceded and said enough is enough. We're going to make this deal, and it's going to have to get done by Thursday in the afternoon. Insane. With that being said, you tell me down in the comment section. Will Giannis be traded by Thursday's deadline? Why for yes and for no? Comment down below what you guys think. Will a Giannis trade happen? It's absolutely bonkers for me to envision this going down, but we're as close as we've ever been. And we're going to keep you guys in the loop. So that's why you subscribe to the channel, is that will do it for today's edition of Warriors Today. Hit that sub button. We'll see you guys next time. And as always, let's go Dubs.